Hi, I'm Kerry Mussington, and I am here to bring awareness today with Mind Over Matter Project Suicide Prevention. I'm tackling the underlying issues of depression. What leads to depression? What is the cause of depression? And today we have a special guest in the house, and that is Mr. Glen Chisholm, former Mayor of Ipswich, Suffolk. Glen, thank you. And we also have Louise, who is volunteering for the Mom Project. She's also a teacher, school teacher. She also does fitness for JDA Lifestyles. And we have in the bottom corner, we have Adrian Ashby, who's also with Crime Lab, bringing awareness, also Director of Mind Over Matter Project Suicide Prevention, bringing crime prevention awareness around crime. Very handy in that aspect of giving people their rights in a mannerism which is warming, and understanding to break down the barriers and bridge the gap of communication, because the fear factor is right out there in the community. So, Glen, thank you for coming today.
No, thank you very much for having me.
What brings me to yourself is that in 2020, we did stand up for racism, but I've never actually had the pleasure of sitting down, having a conversation with you. This is as closest as I've got to you in a very, very long time. I've seen you out, you've been in the same venues that I've been in, but yet I've not had that conversation or pleasure of speaking with you, but the aims are very much as similar as what we're doing. I went over my emails and I realized that I need to speak to you because the aims are the same. What you've experienced and what you're going through, we've got to break down that stigma. You tweeted, and I saw this tweet, because Mind Over Matter follows what your work and what you do. So I saw this tweet, and it says, was approached by two gentlemen this evening. One of them asked, "Excuse me, are you mixed race or white?" A little taken back, but I responded, "Mixed race." He then turned to his friend and said, "Told you, I'd put money on it. You should have paid out."
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time I've had that experience. I think that anyone who is mixed heritage faces that at some point. Some people look at us, especially if you're not exceptionally dark-skinned, as some kind of ambiguity. They look at us, think we're ambiguous. They see us as almost like a curiosity. Some use the term exotic, and they're not quite sure where we are, where we come from. But it can be frustrating having that continual questioning as to who you are. Strangely enough, I've had it standing at bus stops. People come up and say, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm from Ipswich. No, where are you really from? And some people just throwing in random things saying, "Oh, are you Iranian?" I used to get lots of thinking I was Spanish, especially when I was in America, with a large Hispanic population. People come up to me and start speaking to me in Spanish, thinking that I could respond to that. So yeah, there's a lot of people trying to put you in boxes, and instead of just accepting you as who you are, they're already trying to label you and trying to put you in a category. So growing up mixed race, you kind of, when you've had that pushed on you so much, it does kind of make you question your own identity, I think. And it does make things difficult, I think.
What you said, question your own identity, and to go to your tweet, you said, you answered back, I responded mixed race. And so what is mixed about mixed race?
It's exactly, that's the thing. That's I mean, you and I think we're similar kind of age. And I remember as a child, the term which was thrown around was half caste, which is actually a derogatory term. I mean, you look at it now, you look at the background where it came from India, it's almost saying that one race was more dominant than the other. And it's, yeah, the history of that term is not great, but it was commonly used all the while. And yeah, it's we continue having these different labels put on us. But I mean, my self-identity, I see myself as dual heritage. I embrace the fact that my mother is white English, my father is Jamaican, but I was also brought up. My adopted father was Anglo-Indian, so I grew up in a house with that kind of influence as well. So I'm aware of all the different influences which make me who I am as a person, and I also see myself as a dual heritage person, being part of the Black community within Ipswich, and the racists which send me lovely hate mail and make comments at me in the street, they see me as something to direct that racism at. So we're not exempt or don't escape racism. Some people seem to think because we're mixed heritage that we get free pass from these things which are happening, but we don't. Sometimes we have the awful position of getting it from all angles, as in some people feeling that we're not Black enough to experience or understand racism, when it's something that we do face on a regular basis.
Not Black enough. I feel that. I've had that. I'm gonna, again, everything's gonna be kind of relatable with what you're saying. This identity of people kind of like picking it. What are you? What do you look like? You know, how you can't possibly know how I feel. You know, you don't get it, and it really hurts. It hurts because they don't know the struggle. And when you are in the middle of a dual heritage, when people say mixed race, let's talk about dual heritage. I call it born. I put the birth project birth, born into racism through hope. No one, they have these children. No one expects these children to go through what we're going through, and we're then told how we should be, or you're Black. No. Yeah, but the words and the stigma that comes around, yeah, but you're not as dark as them though. Your hair's different. No, but you look Spanish. You look anything but Black. It doesn't matter where where you stand. And it's like piggy in the middle sometimes, because the love of your parents is teaching you the love of your parents. And to love everything about where they're from or their heritage is about teaching that. But unfortunately, there comes a claim to birthright. And this is where the protection comes into it within the community is, listen, I need to teach you about racism. I need you to talk about the indifferences and what you will experience. And it's a shame that we have to teach our children so young, but nobody teaches what it's like for a mixed race child in the middle. It's Black. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. And when Black Lives Matter goes, you're then ripped like this in the middle. Hold on a minute.
I mean, it's very much, I feel that a lot of the understanding that we have around race and racial identity almost feels like it's adopted from the American understanding. And over there, you had the one drop rule, and where anyone who had any kind of color in them was perceived as Black. And I mean, when we look at Barack Obama, for example, who's dual heritage, we see him as the Black president of the United States. When you look at Halle Berry, the Academy Award-winning actress, the Black Academy Award-winning actress, but she's actually dual heritage. So I think a lot of it also stems from how other people perceive us as well. And as I've said, I mean, the racist and the racist abuse that we receive as Black people. We are part of the Black community. But I remember when I was a child, my mother, bless her, she, I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and she told me, you would have the best of both worlds. And I remember thinking, yeah. And then the very next moment, I remember asking this girl to the school disco. She was a white girl, and she turned around to me and she said, "Oh, I can't. My parents don't like your sort." And for me, that was a kick in the stomach. And I remember going home crying to Mum saying, "We don't have the best of both worlds," because it was a hard reality. Well, I have early memories as a child of racist graffiti on the wall outside the house where I grew up. So racism was rammed down our throats from a very young age. Like you said, we don't get a chance to avoid that. We don't get the luxury of sitting there and saying, when should I talk to my child about this horrible thing? It's shoved on us. It's shoved on us from a young age. And it's something that we learn to understand and face very quickly, unfortunately.
I think, I've dated, isn't this funny? I've dated outside my race. I don't have a race. And that's the thing about it. The beauty of it is the experience that you have with different culture. It is the experience that you are having with the different culture. What is the tug? How everybody seems to think that you should be living like them, or you should be living like them, or you don't belong. And the indifferences causes pain, depression, oppression, suicide, and then rates are high. And to be torn into a world, I feel that when you are of dual heritage, regardless, you don't need to be born to a white mother or black father. You could be born into different, you see, this is like race wars, isn't it? It's like turf wars and postcode wars, and it's just about a claim to identity and who should be better than somebody else with the understanding. And it's territorial, it becomes territorial as well. How do you teach people what it feels like to be torn in the middle of two worlds?
It is. I think that we do have a unique life experience from being dual heritage, but also I feel that the best way to learn is through understanding other cultures and understanding other people. I was really fortunate that when I grew up, my circle of friends was made up of people. We used to joke and say we're United Colours of Benetton, because we had like Italian, someone of Vietnamese origin, white, black, dual heritage. We were all together, and we all got to learn about each other's families and each other's cultures. And I'm really glad that I had that growing up. And my son, when he went to university, he met people from different countries, different backgrounds, and it really broadened his horizons. And that's what I want people to do. We shouldn't be too insular. It's important that we stand up and work with our community. We do what's best to help our community, because we do face certain issues, but we need to understand other communities and work and spend time with other communities. That's how you break down barriers. A lot of racism is from fear and ignorance. And so by breaking down that fear and fostering understanding is how we overcome a lot of this stuff. So we need to make sure that we work together. That's the important thing. Work together and work with other people.
When you're right on that. When the Black Lives Matter event kicked off with the George Floyd, I felt there are so many mixed messages within that. It was like, wow, people are coming together, but then I questioned, why did they come together? And then I looked at who was there and who isn't there, and where the stigma is like, well, I'm not going because Black Lives Matter is run by somebody else or run by somebody else. And so all of these people that are saying, look, we're standing up for what is cruel behavior against what is cruel behavior. We're standing up for unkind behavior that is affecting one of them. And I think people are too honed in on labels rather than what humanity feels and what they're going through and how they can make a difference. It's all of these labels. Are you mixed race? Are you half caste? Are you all the names that I've ever had? And here we go with the BAME now. Change the name. We don't want BAME anymore. We want to change their name. Change the name to what? Do we not get a say so in this? We are not guinea pigs. We are human. If you want equality, then just say humanity. Simple. But what's going on here is that all of these subliminal messages are causing a stir again, more and more, but they're coming at different angles. Okay, we won't call them BAME anymore. Well, change the name to that, full stop. Beautiful, amazing, motivated entrepreneurs, all right? Because that's the way I accept it, rather than putting people in a tick box all the time. How do you feel about BAME? I'm going to answer that question to all of you, please. How do you feel about that BAME name?
For me, it's I see it as a problematic term. Being in my official capacity, different things that I've done. As you said, I'm quite active on social media. I share a lot of stuff, and I've been called out rightly for using the term in the past, but I used it because it was an accepted category as such. But it is problematic because I think the issue is that we find sometimes it's a get out clause for a company to say they've reached their diversity chapter by doing that, by having BAME. But sometimes, because it's trying to lump everything together, certain groups will slip through the net as such. I mean, you look at the current cabinet, Boris Johnson come out there and say, we've got a BAME representative cabinet, but it's made up of people of Asian descent. There's no real black representation within that cabinet. So it's making that statement, but the reality is different. It skews things. So I think it misrepresents. But ideally, in an ideal world, I've heard the saying that labels are for clothes, not people. And ideally, it would be great for us all to be individuals. But while there's still prejudice and racism out there, we need some way of being able to keep on top and monitor that, so that we know what's happening. Because otherwise, people are just going to, like we've seen with the race report, just going to come out and say, it's not a problem anymore. It doesn't exist. Everything's great and perfect. And we know that.
Seriously, thinking about the aspects of the agenda within that, if you take away that term, you're saying that there is no, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. They say that, what's the word? They say, I'm sorry, I've lost it here. They say that that we have less. What's the word? Come on, someone help me out.
What you think about institutional racism?
Disadvantage, that's the word.
Oh,
they say that the BAME is disadvantaged black and disadvantaged black and Asian is disadvantaged because of what we're going through and this, that, and the other. And if you then were to remove the BAME label, then you would remove funding because you would not be seen as disadvantaged anymore. So is this a funding tactic? Not going to get into it. I just think it's a highlight of, again, it does give people more talk, and when people more talk about what's going on, it stirs a colour issue again, and it's constantly backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Who's doing better than the other? And yet there's more discrimination above a black and white thing going out there in different communities as well. But they only highlight a black and white affair. And that's not really today's message. Today's message is we are very diverse. There is more interracial relationships. There are mixed race children, if you want to call it mixed heritage children, of all different ethnicities and backgrounds. And so therefore we have to consider that it's not just a black and white thing. There are people that are born into loving communities, but are being destroyed because of the indifferences and the right that somebody feels they have, overpowering someone. The message out there is, you know, your kids have another world outside of your world when we're adults. And you've got to think back of what we experienced. We didn't always go back and tell our mum what was going on. But nowadays, if we don't break down the stigma, what's happening is this more crime. The kids are being killed by kids. And some of those children are of interracial backgrounds and have white mothers or have black fathers, vice versa, however you want to put it. So it's not a black and white issue. This is an issue for all because we're brought into culture. Guys, what do you feel about the things that you're hearing? Lou?
You want to go first, Adrian? Yeah, okay, I'll go first. I think the issue of racism with dual heritage children, you have to start them from very young. You know, as soon as they're talking, you have to make sure they're aware of both sides, mother and father. I had same issue.
Hold on a minute. Your if you can hear or see your connection, see these wonderful messages that want to go out there, they get interrupted. Hello? He cannot hear.
He can't hear.
So until he gets that back up. I apologise. This is reality. This is real life. We don't pretend to be anything we're not. So, if I could mute him, I would mute him. I have no idea.
Maybe can you message him and let him know?
Let's
like the bionic man, isn't it? It's like, oh, he's gone.
That's the wonders of technology, isn't it? That's what happens.
Okay, it is technology, and this is reality, isn't it? We don't pretend to be that something that we're not. This is real talk, real situations, and hey, you know, the stigma. It's about the message. The message at the end of the day was things to consider. Lou, let's get to you then. What do you make of what you're hearing today? And we're not even got into it yet, but we're getting into it. What do you make?
Well, yeah, what Adrian was starting to say about making sure that your children know from a young age if they are dual heritage, about both sides. They need to know. My children are dual heritage. I'm not, but my children are. And, you know, when we was mentioning the George Floyd situation and all of that, I became really protective over my children at that point, because from the black side of the culture, you know, there were portions of people that were very anti-white people, because obviously the police were white and whatever. And, you know, calling white people all these names and everything. And I'm thinking, oh, but hold on a minute, my children are half white. And so, you know, my friends and other acquaintances, all these hurtful things coming out of their mouth. And I took that as personally being directed at my children, because that's half of their makeup, you know. So I do feel that it's really important that they're aware of both sides of their heritage, their cultures. And yeah, it's my children now, this generation, my children haven't experienced what I experienced growing up, as we were saying earlier about, you know, people asking questions, and where when I grew up, it was very still much skinheads and NF and all of that. And although that's all around us still, luckily for my children, they haven't been targeted, or they haven't been sort of really put into that kind of situation. The schools they've been to are very multicultural. I have, like you were saying about the United Colours of Benetton friends, my friendship circle is very much the same. And I've always tried to embrace that and show to my kids that colour isn't an issue. It's about the person within and, you know, how that person treats you rather than what they look like. So yeah, it's
a hard one because
it is a hard one.
I've been spat at for being with a white man. I have been called a sellout for being with a white man. I've also, when it's funny when I'm with a black man, or my white friends seem to sort of drift off. Sorry. When I'm with personally, when I'm with I talk about the experiences, good or bad experiences. And I have to say that I've named everything as sweet and chocolate bars now. So I've said I've had everything basically. Sorry, Glen. I said basically what I said is I have dated darker skinned people than myself. I have dated lighter skinned people than myself. I've dated mixed race people than myself. And the experiences that I have had is I found that sometimes within a mixed race, dating a mixed race person, I felt that sometimes their culture is more based on you're really English guy and you don't even know how to cook chicken and rice. And so that's the differences. And then you can't dance, where is your rhythm? Where is your beat? You know what I mean? Where did you get the beat from? Did you? And then I realized that how their upbringing was more country music than it was reggae or something like that. So, and then when I dated the white person, I actually married a white person, and I married a black person. And I'm married, a mixed race. So I've had all the bar, Mars bars, and twigs. All right. And I feel that the differences, so I don't take anything personally. I realize there is a way we are brought up different. Mm-hmm. When I dated the white man, he was so English. My mother used to say that she was a white woman, and she used to say he is so English, more English than I am. And she was from Norfolk, you know, and he was from Suffolk, and it was from everything is different. It's a different world. It's from the music aspect, from if you're going to watch it. I felt sitting there watching a video when something black came on, he would say, turn that off. If the kind of music, we're talking about the music, turn the toot off. But that's my culture, that's my heritage. And I found that dating dating my mum's side of things was not really going to be the same feeling as my mum would feel for the culture, you know, because my mum embraced loving the culture. They embraced loving me, but because I was a lighter skin, they thought they could accept me the way that I was, and I would fit into that world. In fact, I didn't. I stood out a mile in an English, real pure English town to culture. I saw that my dad's culture side started getting whittled away. Take this away, take that away, take that away. There was no culture in Ipswich, Suffolk. They started to rip anything that became from my dad's heritage away from Ipswich town. Like the Caribbean Club, the only one building there was to meet the needs of the black community. And it just got diluted down to nothing. Anything that opened is nothing. It's a struggle. It's just really bad. But where we are born and raised, compared to London, London really has dual heritage, and it just seems more, everybody just gets on. The only issues they have is more or less with the police, you know, in a sense. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist, because it does everywhere. But in the town, the poor little town that I was born and raised in, I feel that the reputation of the town is failing the people, because it's not supplying the needs or meeting the needs to address these things. And they're not looking at the bigger picture that it affects people's mental health, this discrimination, this ostracizing, and everybody. You love your neighbours, your next door neighbours, your upstairs, your downstairs, all the way around you. We are getting so diverse with heritage that you don't know who you're calling out nowadays.
Yeah.
Look at Mariah Carey. People will celebrate Mariah Carey until they find out she got black in her. And so it's about reputation, but it's about individuality. Well, I've got some points here that I'd like to discuss with you. Your interracial kids may have different accents, culture than you. True or false?
True.
That's true, yeah.
Consider this is new territory for you both. If you've got dual heritage, you then are not going to comprehend how your child in the middle actually feels about understanding a world of your love language, their love language, your like maybe Christian views, like going to Sunday church every minute, but these people won't go to church every minute, to what you expect of the child. So you're tearing children in the middle of this sometimes. Did you feel pressure from your family about how to raise your own child, your children?
No, not really. But it was strange because my son's name is Clinton, which isn't overly common in this country. But his mother's family come from Antigua, so I remember saying, "Oh, this is we're going to call him Clinton," and I remember my mother-in-law turned around saying, "Clinton, oh, that's a common name," and just sort of being taken aback by that. But no, I mean, I'm really thankful that Clinton's had the exposure of like my culture, my mum, but also his mother and her culture and family when he was growing up. But we never felt any pressure. We were allowed to raise our son how we wanted to raise him. And I even though me and his mum divorced, we both shared such an active role in his upbringing. I'm really proud of how he's turned out, and is a bright, intelligent young man. So but no, we didn't have external factors from the family in there.
Same. We didn't. Yeah. I didn't really either. My children's father is Scottish, and my parents are from the Caribbean. So although I've got a big family, so you know, Sundays when you go to mum's house and it's you have all the traditional, all the big table laid out with food, and you play all the music and that kind, and they'd get that little bit of snippet there. And then going to his side, it would be very different. You know, it would be your traditional dinners, your traditional roasts, and sitting down and you know, watching a telly and doing that kind of thing. But I was never directed or it was never said to me that, you know, they need to be involved in this, you need to do this with them, they need to have this installed in them. It was, I think that as a parent, you should be given the choice to bring your children up how you wish. I mean, if you have that dual heritage, then like I said, as me, I'd embrace both sides. Some people might not have access or knowledge to do that. You know, you might have a dual heritage child, but before that child maybe is grown up or comes into that world, and that other person, the other half of the parenting is gone, you might not know anything about that culture. So then that child will be brought up maybe a bit more one-sided. But I chose to make sure that I sort of included both.
Children just can exist in the homes. I'm really going back to how I felt now when I'm talking to you. So when children just exist and get on with their lives, don't see an issue. It's not till we get to this point we look back and think, oh my God, did my mum or dad teach me about racism? Not really, because it was like the norm. It was already, you were born into it. And like as you said, seeing horrible names written or spray canned all over the doors, and no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. You thought, why not the Irish? They're white. What's the problem? And I never understood that concept of why the skin of them looks white to me. But because they got they're Irish, they got called Irish, so that's an accent. So, again, why the stigma one? That's when I never understood. That's when I could break down what racism really was about. Control. Because if you look at the Irish, I know we're talking about the community, we get it, but we're not. We're talking about name tags. We're talking about labels, aren't we? Everything is about a label, right? We're not seeing humanity for what it really is, humans with our own individual identity. And so when you're looking at what's wrong with the Irish? Why would you outcast Irish? You've only got to look at a housing policy. Look at their little pie chart, and it's still saying pretty much the same message. What was carried out years ago, and that's reflected within the housing, within the system, within the care homes and everything else. So children's homes I'm talking about, the social services, there's a big issue. Look at how many mixed race kids must have fell to the children's system, to the social services, to be adopted out or fostered out back in the 70s because it was being unaccepted. You would have found out you went with another race. How many children out there? I barely made it out of that, out there going through that, lost their parents because they had to be separated because of the colour of their skin. I never understand. Do you understand the concept? Maybe one of you guys could enlighten me on this, because I'm asking and I'm posing the question because I need the understanding of it. If it's a black and white thing, then why is white people outcasted with the Irish, outcasting Irish? Please, somebody explain that.
Basically, it is about control. It goes back to the fact that the historical conflict between Britain and Northern Ireland, as a way to try and Britain done some pretty awful things in the country in the past. You had the potato famine where millions of people have died. So it was about control. Also, when someone is trying to justify doing bad things to another human being, they try to dehumanize them, they try to break them down. That's where the awful stereotypes came in, saying that the way they Irish were portrayed as a caricature rather than the real people that they are. And so that's where a lot of it came from. So it's about the control, breaking down, dehumanizing them. When it is, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to go over there. It's a beautiful country with wonderful people. But it was part of control. It's the basic. It's a very complex and very long situation. But the short of it is, it was about the control and dehumanization.
But it's the clear message, isn't it? Of segregation and discrimination. And the amount of times that I used to see the people move on, and that's how I actually felt. Oh my God, they've been treated nothing like my heritage has been treated. Get out, you're vermin, get out. Those things that we can see with our eyes when they travel down into the parks, etc. There's a whole page full of hate, and they should go back to where they come from. And I'll be the first to sort of, do you know how that tone feels? To say, go back to where you come from. I come from my mama's belly, She just so happened to be in England, but if she was in Jamaica, we're talking about heritage then, aren't we? We're talking about we're talking about, what are you talking about? Because DNA is one thing, and I think it's claimed to rights and ownership of what sides you should pick. And I think when you're born into this diversity now, you're the. Do you feel that you're a bridge gap to bridge the gap?
I think there's still but the thing is that there is still a stigma which is put upon us as Black and brown people. We are still always seen as, no matter how many generations. I mean, my mum was English, but my father was come from Jamaica. But the amount of times that I've been told to go back to where you've come from, and it's something that we've had. Also, the question, as I said earlier on, about like, oh, where are you from? No, where are you really from? And it's something there, and my son's had that as well. You do. There is that assumption that we are seen as foreign and not quite British enough. That's just part of it.
What would you like to be identified as?
See, I like wearing lots of hats. I like being lots of things. I'm proud of being dual heritage. I'm proud of being British. I was born in, this is my country. I was born here. I'm also very proud to be part of the Black community. I see that, but there's so much more of that which I am. I'm so many different layers of things which make me as Glen a human being. So I like being complex. It's a bit wild to get comfortable in that.
So Louise, what would you feel like to be identified as?
I think I kind of go along the same lines as what Glen's saying, because that question, go back to where you come from. Well, I was, Balham. You want me to go back to Balham because, that's where I come from, the hospital there. And then obviously you've got the Black side of it, and I am British, and my children, and it's just, like you say, there's so many different layers, so many different categories that you could fit into.
Yeah.
So I like being, I don't think there's one pot that I sit in either.
I think behind closed walls, where we are now, I'm meeting you. You could be a stranger to me. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're Black. I don't care if you're brown, mixed race. I'm not really interested in the colour of your skin. I'm interested in your intellect conversation. I'm interested in what you're doing for the community. I'm interested in how your mannerism is and how you reflect and how you play a part in my life, vice versa. I'm looking at, when we pick up people with that crumbling mental health and in crisis, and we pose the question, listen to them. A lot of that is not being accepted. And that doesn't care about the colour of his skin. Mental health doesn't give a damn about the colour of his skin. Do you know what I mean? Depression, it doesn't care about the colour of the skin. What's creating the depression is people not understanding, and they are in fear of certain aspects of people's lives and languages and mannerisms, and the breakdown of conversation isn't there for understanding. So we're sending these young kids now into the schools, and there they are playing away, not a care in the world. And so behind closed doors, isn't it the adults that are going to be teaching these youngsters and should be teaching these youngsters? We've had racism. I hate the word racism because it actually doesn't define what that naughty issue was, what that person done. Do you see what I'm saying? It's too easy to say, oh, you're racist. Mm-hmm. When you have to prove injustices and harassment and discrimination, you have to prove what racism is. You can't just say it. You can't just say it. It has to be an act. What is the act that defines someone from being a racist? Glen, over to you. That's your question.
What I find frustrating more than anything is we've faced racism our whole lives, and racism has been around for a very long time. And I found that when we had the protests after George Floyd, we seemed to be making a little bit of headway, seemed to be getting forward. And I felt that perhaps this was a turning point, and that we can move forward into not having a conversation as to if racism exists, but how we can address it, what we can do. But unfortunately, it still seems that we're having to have this argument of well, does racism really exist? When we know it does, we face it, but there's still certain people in power, certain people in certain positions who like to say that everything is fine, everything's perfect, and it's not an issue. It's not, but that's not what we face. So that's one of my major frustrations. That it kind of gets it gets me down a bit when I look at that. And I mean, as I'm quite I speak a lot about what I've faced, and I've been really fortunate to be given some platforms for that. I've spoken on radio, and I've written articles in the paper. And each time I do that, I get abusive emails, I get messages and things sent to me.
Who? What? Not naming the person. What colour, skin tone?
From white members of the public saying that I have a chip on my shoulder. Once again, questioning my blackness. One person referring to all black people as scum of the earth, and that we deserve what we face. And yeah, I just have stuff like that. I get those coming through, the messages, and it's tiring. Like my mum said to me, because I got quite, when I received it, I got quite upset, and my mum was like, "Why do you put yourself forward? Why do you do that?" And it's like, I feel I have a responsibility. I have a chance to speak up. And if by me taking some flack raises the issue in the people's minds and we get a chance to move forward, then that's my cross to bear, and I will do that. But it is frustrating that it does weigh you down a little bit.
It does weigh you down a lot if you allow it. And you're right. You know, this is one of the reasons why I'm grateful that you're here raising and talking about this. Many people will switch off, many people won't. But if you want to protect your children, then you need to be on our side as far as raising awareness with us, because you know, it's the kids that are going behind closed doors. I'm one of those kids. Okay, 13 years old, I tried to end my life by committing suicide, plotting with the school children how to commit suicide with them too. Okay, 13. And that's because I carried a lot of baggage and a lot of BS around with me, with discrimination. And that word wasn't even used then. Okay, that word was not used back in, discrimination. That word wasn't used then. It's educational now to us in the 2021s. But in the 1970s, that word was not used. It was racist, and that's it, wasn't it? And it was NF, and then it was people boxed in like KKK and skinhead this and skinhead that, and it was, we knew what that meant, the titles, what it was for. But honest, the feeling of being outcasted left, right, and centre when you are a mixed race, you're not good enough to be, and that's how it feels. I'm not saying it's the way it is now in my life, although people's behaviour can demonstrate it feels very similar. You're not good enough to be into the black community when someone's angry at you, and you ain't good enough to be in the white community when someone's angry at you. Okay, and I
completely agree.
And I think it's when they're angry, and I have to say, I've done it myself. When I've been angry at someone, you're going to name call, because it's just a weapon, isn't it? It's a complete weapon. 1 minute they were your friends, you'd sit around the table eating their food, sharing, laughing, joking, but at the same time in your head, when things don't go right, it's almost like you want to really destroy that person when things don't go right. And that's when you use the colour of the skin in your life. You look at your life and you can't believe how somebody could even move forward. That's why they use the terminology, you don't deserve to be where you are. And I've had it so many times, even in 2021, by people's actions. They demonstrate, because they don't like change. They don't like to see growth. And sometimes you have to come into your own self-esteem, because people that are not confident or understand the meaning of individuality will destroy someone by the indifferences.
No, I mean, going back to the point you made about being stuck in the middle and not feeling that you fit in either camp. No, I completely agree with you on that. I spent a lot of my life feeling that, you're the only brown face amongst a whole lot of white people. And then when you're with a whole lot of black people, you're the palest person there. And yeah, I felt like I didn't fit in either camp as such. And you do. There were times where I felt isolated, where I felt that no one understood me, because there wasn't that many people like me to look up to and to get advice from and to speak to about these feelings I was having. But it was only when I got older when I started to appreciate my individuality. And as I said earlier on, I like being complex, and we are all complex individuals. And as that understanding came later in life, but when I was a child, there were times when it was hard. And my hope is that with much more dual heritage people being around, that the younger generations have those people they can go to for advice. They're not feeling so isolated. But yeah, it was definitely more difficult when we were growing up.
I think they don't, when they do the statistics, they they literally box, not giving a chance to explore that middle ground. And I think having the middle ground, there's so many mixed race kids out there that we have to change this hate love language. That's not even love, all it is for them in that love and war. We have to change this language that's being put out there, because these children are going to suffer. I always say that if you're in fear of something you don't know, or you don't know the culture, then say hello to someone, speak to them, etc., and explore. But I have to say that even in my own complexion, if somebody is really, really, really darker than myself, does it make a difference to me? It's about somebody's time that they're given. What I noticed in where I'm from is Suffolk, that there isn't that many black people. There isn't that many black people compared to London. And so where I'm also from is that when I'm with my partner who's much darker than myself, that's when I notice the difference. I feel a difference, but it doesn't mean that somebody's hating on us. They're probably looking, oh, look at them, they stand out a mile. That's when I feel it. Sometimes, and I'll be honest, my thought process as what to say, you stay at home while I go for that interview, because if you come with that interview, they're not going to give me the job, because you really are highlighting the colour of our skin. That's been my thought process in past years. Do you know what I mean? Having someone show up, and that's where they say that we have privilege. We've got privilege. And that's where we're hated on as well. We don't have privilege, we've got common sense. Now to play the game, I'm just kidding. I think, no, I think on the serious side, it's horrible being name called and mistreated as if you're scum, as if you don't deserve to be here. But we do. We all do. No matter what colour, shade of our skin. It doesn't matter on the colour, shade of our skin. If somebody needs a donor, you're not going to ask what colour their skin is first before you have it, are you? I think we've got a duty of care, actually, being born into this lovely cultural differences is a duty of care to bridge that gap and bring people together to the understanding of we all bleed the same. We can all help one another, through situations with the education. We all learn so much, and we all contain education up here. And it's about personal knowledge. But how are we ever gonna break the stigma of it's okay to be different? It's okay to be unique. It's okay to stand out, but stand up for the right things and the right reasons. It's okay. But I dread when my little granddaughter, she's almost the same colour as myself, sang that song, Brown Skin Girl. I didn't know, I've never heard the song before, but when she was singing, I thought, why are you singing that song? She said, because the colour of my skin is beautiful and you should embrace it. And That's a child saying that, having to teach his child at a young age. And they feel it. They feel it because it is the parents or the media teaching it to your children. So I would say be mindful of the things that you put into your children's mind. Teach them well. Guys, have your say. I have a whole list of things to go through, but you know what? It was things to consider when you've got in. I'll just run through them briefly. Things to consider when talking about interracial community. If you're planning on having mixed race kids or interracial kids, this is something I picked up online. Your interracial kids may have a different colour, accent, culture than you. You consider this as new territory for both you and your partner if you're of different backgrounds. Your interracial kids may adopt one identity over another. Very mindful, because some children will want to fit in somewhere along the line where there's nothing going on, no racism, no horrible stuff. They just picked up great friends, but then they're torn. You see, you need to go with the times. Your interracial kids are going to take on some aspects of your culture, but not all. Just as you probably did growing up and then going on to have your own family. Adapt to the country you're living in. Expect that your interracial kids will question, even doubt, or be ashamed of certain culture practices.
So the adapt to the country you're living in.
Yeah, because you remember when people. Okay, here's a classic case. I had a court incident where father is or mother is trying to fight for their child, but because they're from a different country, they didn't know some of the English rules over here and what not to do and what to do, particularly when they're black heritage. In certain countries, they would smack their children. But over here, one smack has led them, after so many years of being a parent, has led them to have their children. They can't even see their children because of one smack. And again, that nearly happened to me, because I smacked my children at the very beginning of my, when I was a mother very years ago. I smacked my children because that's what my father had taught us. In fact, my father used an instrument for us. And a lot of the black community would say the same, that they were beaten, they were reprimanded really badly if they were put out of place, and that was to keep in check. It was to keep in check because there was more at stake back in the day. And I have to go way back in the day, and I'm not going to mention the word, but go back in the day when people would beat people with instruments. It was man, woman, child, didn't matter. It was to get the job done, and that was that. There would be consequences and reputation if on the line if your child was misbehaving out in the public arena. And that's where some of this culture differences about the discipline came into it. It's been diluted now because even the schools here in the UK implemented discipline with instruments. There was a cane, there was the ruler and the chalkboard, there was even hands, there was physical actual abuse going on in the schools that I witnessed in the 70s and 80s. And so therefore this is where we're now going to break down all of this. You can't put your hands on kids, you can't put your hands on people because you just like them or because you're uneducated around this arena. So education is key. No physical violence, no naming and shaming, no belittling, and we'll be all right, won't we? Okay.
Oh no, yeah. So you were saying it was because what was the statement you made about being in adhere to the country that you're.
Yeah, it said adapt to the country that you're in.
But that only would go as far as those kind of things. I still feel that, you know, if you are living in another country, you can still embrace your culture from where you're from. Like, you shouldn't have to say, well, I don't live there anymore, so that we're not going to eat like that, we're not going to dress like that, we're not going to carry on those traditional things. That I get where you're saying, you know, the law-abiding things, yeah. But as for your culture and as that, you should be able to continue that freely anywhere, because that's what you are, that's who you are.
I think if we're going to break down this discrimination and race wars, I feel that rules are rules, and if you break the rules, then you're breaking the law, right? Which is no discrimination. So how do you teach and re-educate people if they're discriminating or not? Because sometimes people could just roll off their tongue, they don't really mean it. But for years, they've been indoctrinated in how words are put out there. So they don't really, really mean it, what they say, or do they? Because like I said before,
it's hard to take it back though, isn't it? Once you've said it, you said it.
You have.
And it's directed to, it's already made that indent. Like, you know, people have said things to me before and go, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean it. If you didn't mean it, why did you say it? Like, I don't know, there's got to be some control over what you say and what you don't say.
I think that, I think you're right. I think actions have consequences. Everything from someone making a horrible statement and doing physical harm to you has an impact, but also sometimes these things have impacts on the family around as well. So it's a consequence to everything. And I think that sometimes these actions you can tell there's a difference between friends having a conversation and light-hearted banter, or perhaps if someone says something and goes too far, you can say, look, mate, you kind of offended me with that. And if a friend would be like, yeah, you're right, so I put my hands up, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. But you can tell when it's coming from an area of hate, when someone is directing that at you with hate and venom. Yeah, you can tell that. You can tell what that is.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. And it's a challenge within oneself, really, whether or not you're going to react, because every action gives a reaction. It's how you react to them. Will you lower your standards? Will you degrade yourself into going into that aggression mode and fighting for that, point of view? Because what you do find is, even if you have a right to defend yourself, there are better ways of defending yourself than the physical violence of it. And what you do find is generally, and this has happened to me, when you are speaking out and you are of a different nationality or colour, should I say, then it's definitely difficult to get your voice heard. And life again can be lost through the ignorance of not recognising that a human is a human that needs help. For these horrible events that take place, like racism or discrimination or violence, that all needs to be nipped in the bud one way or another. I think if anybody's experiencing what they consider or identify as racism, then you don't have to tolerate it. You do have to prove it, and you can do something about it. And a lot of people say, what's the point? The point is raising awareness about it. It does stop it. It does make people look in their own back. Am I doing that?
The point is, if you carry on with that attitude, it will never change. Well, what's the point? I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to, I'm just going to swallow it. Then you're allowing it.
I feel,
and then it just continues and continues because they've got away with it the first time. They think, oh well, I can say what I like because it's not going to.
There are times when I go to do my live, or I go to put a little status up of encouragement to someone. I want to say, hey, I know I'm mixed race. I don't bite. Please share my message. I won't hurt you. And it's like I could see. It's just like silent. It's like silent. It's just because it's different, isn't it? You know, it's different. It can be completely different, especially around my town. I'm yap all the time. But I feel I want to talk and tackle and do a workshop about how to nurture back into your mind and bridge those gaps about discrimination and alienation, parent alienation. A lot of people don't know what that word actually means, and it's a whole package within a package. And this is where I think we tackle that area. It's you should have a good outcome of removing the hate between one another within the families. You know what I mean? Within the culture differences as well. So thanks, Glen, for being on here today. I was going to pull up your picture, just proudly pull up your picture. I can just do that. And look at the background on there. Look at this. Glen Chisholm to become new mayor of Ipswich with teenage son as consort. Look at this. This is published 2015, you know, and updated 2020. So it's not that long ago where it's been updated. And I think it's good to see nice brown or faces, however you want to identify yourselves in the media. And I think, well done. A lot of people say, well, you only skipped him because you're just mixed race. And I'll say, nope, sorry. If you just look at, there was a Mr. Grant, wasn't he, at one point? Oh, then move it.
Can't hear you.
Move it. Just unmute.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, Albert Grant and Hamill Clark were before me.
So that would dilute that conversation, that statement. Throw it out the park. Stop talking out your backside. People at the end of the day deserve to do something. And the fact that you became mayor, do you think can anyone do that? Can I do that?
No, you have to be a councillor first, then you're voted in by your fellow councillors. But yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, I'm really fortunate in that it was like 5 years ago, and I still have sometimes kids who come up to me and say, I remember when you visited my school and you spoke about this and spoke about that, and it was good. And it was great to have Clinton involved as well. So yeah, it's something I'm very proud of. And
you met Ed Sheridan as well. I was really going into your stuff. You met who? You met a lot of people, didn't you? A lot of people. But what's the idea of having a mayor? Because come on, when you were just not really into this mayor MP stuff, and you don't really get it. What is the benefit of having a mayor?
Okay, well, a mayor is a civic function. So basically, they chair the full council meetings, but also it's a great opportunity to say thank you to people in Ipswich when they do great things. Oh. So I had a chance, for example, as a guy who started the park runs, and he had to step down from that because he'd become ill. So basically, I just invited him up to the mayor's parlour. We had him and some friends. We sat there, we had some tea, some cake, had a chat, and I presented him with a little medal to say thank you. Oh. And the guy, he was the guy from East London. He was quite a wide boy, quite outspoken, but he was really touched by that gesture. And it was great to be able to do it, to say thank you. And that's what I was. I was like a representative of the town, saying thank you for what people have done. And I got to go to other places and represent interests. So I go to Bury St Edmunds, meet other mayors, and sort of say, yeah, this is Ipswich, this is what we've got, this is how we are. So
this is my life. I mean, come on, it's like when I saw you in your red gown and the jewels around your neck.
Big gold chain.
If those chains, look, come on, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, Louise. Let's get in there with the questions. Right. Sorry, Glen, you got to go.
No, I've got a little bit more time. But no, it was another thing that's really great for me is as I said earlier, I wear so many hats, I come from different things. But so to be mixed heritage, to originally come from a council estate, to be raised in Ipswich, I like to show that people from these backgrounds, when I looked at mayor, they see these like grand Victorian gentlemen or something like that. And so I wanted to show that anyone from any background can do that. So perhaps when I was speaking to the kids in the school, they might look at me and they think, well, if he can do that, perhaps I can be an architect. I can do whatever I want if I set my heart to it.
You show me another side, actually, because you think it's almost like you're a role model. When you became in my town where I was born and raised, you became a bit of a role model, although we didn't know you. I didn't know you. I've never met you before. Who is this relatable? Is it? What colour is he? Who is he? What's he from? You know, even I was mystery about that. But when I found you in the same venues as me, partying away, oh Glen, partying away, I was like, oh Glen, do you know what I mean? You were just like everybody else. That's just a uniform and a role and something you had to do and make a statement and get a message out there and try and do some good while you were actually in that role. And I think that was the eye opener to say, yeah, it did show that if he can do it, how did he get to do it? You know, anyone can do it. And that's about knowing, if people know, because I think there's plenty of people said I could do something with it, but if they don't know what the role in details and what it can do, then thanks for raising awareness on that again today.
No, it was great. I think that people could tell that I was passionate and I was having fun when I was doing it. When I got to we had the Indian Mallow at Christchurch Park, so I've done some Bhangra dancing there and stuff like that. I think people could tell that I was generally having fun and I was loving it, and that's what that's one of the things I wanted to get through is, like you mentioned, the being relatable, being able to just speak to everybody and show that we are normal human beings and break down barriers.
I mean, the thing is having fun. It was like, oh, look at him, he's supposed to be doing some work and he's out here clubbing it. That's what you got, wasn't it? That's the kind of crap you got as well, wasn't it? You know?
Yeah.
And it's like you weren't allowed to have a weekend off.
Well, no, it would be strange because I remember, because the paper quite often put my picture in there, and so people were aware who I was. And I'd be sitting having a drink at a bar with some friends, and people would come up and say, "What are you going to do about parking in the town? What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that?" I was like, "Okay, hang on a minute. I just having a little bit of a drink." So yeah, people did think that I was on tap and on duty all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, I often get that. It's like, you know, what? Am I not allowed a private life, you know? But I think I'm glad to see that, you know, for me, seeing you stand up for racism alongside me. I hijacked that, you know. Listen, I wasn't invited, and when again, you see, I'm doing mental health awareness, and see, it's again around in Ipswich. I'm born and bred from Ipswich, but hey, it's like the indifferences are there. Let me say it this way, because I am outskirts to London, and look at Louise. You know, it's a classic example. We're having to work away from Ipswich because Ipswich is really slow for coming forward, and if people want the support, it was once there, the project's there, still has always been there. But I don't seek approval anymore from the authorities in the town, because I realise that's where we're going wrong. You don't need validating from those. You validate with the people that are actually, like Glen has jumped on the Mind Over Matter project, and it validates that somebody's listening. Somebody heard what you're saying, and they've got something to add to deliver a message as well, as far as raising awareness. And I think that's what we're doing here. We're meeting incredible people, and some from Ipswich. We had Chance Marie. You've been on the radio this morning, Glen, ICRFM 105.7 as well. But yeah, you have. And that's what I'm saying, getting the awareness out there, coming together, bringing a community to say everybody is welcome. It doesn't matter about the colour of your skin, you are welcome to jump on this campaign, as a campaign, awareness, I use that word, in spreading the message, teach love, not hate.
100%.
Thank you for your interview today.
No.
What are you currently doing now for the project, for where you're going? What do you want anyone to, what you got going on?
Okay, well, I've got lots of things happening at the moment. My day job is I'm actually a project worker supporting homeless people. That's what I do for a living. I'm stepping down as a counsellor in May, so I'll no longer be a member of Ipswich Borough Council. But I'll still be involved. I'll still be involved in projects with the Black community in Ipswich, and also I just look for ways that I can help out and get involved. I mean, my passions are around mental health, and also just looking forward to spending some time with my family as well. That's the important thing.
Well, I do homeless as well, so we really do need to talk, because I don't know if you've ever seen some of the stories that we've carried out within the homeless with the issues that people are faced, not necessarily just street homeless, you know, the homelessness situation. We started off doing the homeless and getting it because it led to addiction, drug, alcohol abuse, everything. It led to everything. So homeless was my first baby. For now we're doing into the mental health, and now we're asking people to get their life back. So showing them the tools and tackling the discrimination and saying, giving them the education. That's what I'm doing. So I hope we can hook up and do something, because there's so many workshops there with education that are there and willing to help anyone that needs those workshops. So yeah, all good, isn't it? And find out what you're doing as well. So you can call us in, can't you? Have a look around. Yeah.
No, but really, thank you very much for having me on and talking to me today. It's been really good talking to you guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. But I've got to.
Yeah, no, okay? Thank you very, very, very much, Glenn and Louise and Adrian, who was here earlier as well. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Hold your best smile. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
That was Glen Chisholm from Ipswich, former ex-mayor from Ipswich, Suffolk. We were talking about race and identification. What did you make of the interview? What did you make of?
I found it really a bit of an eye-opener, as I'm not from I'm not from an interracial black background, but my children are. So sitting here, it's weird, because even though you and Glenn are both of mixed heritage and I'm not, we all suffered exactly the same. So we're all sitting here, and that's three completely different shades of skin, but because we all have that one common denominator of the black culture that tied us together, and we all experienced growing up exactly the same.
Yeah,
and
we did.
Sorry?
I think we did. We did. You know, you hit the nail on the head. We certainly did.
We did. And I could understand where, you know, where you were saying that there were some parts in your lives where you didn't know where you fitted in, i.e. you weren't good enough to be on this team, you weren't good enough to be on that team. And yeah, it was actually a really good conversation, because, you know, what you're saying, my children are living that now. And I think this has given me a bit more information, a bit more background, a bit more knowledge on how and what to say to them.
I think the girls would experience it a lot more. When you've got mixed race kids, I always used to not want to go out with anybody of my complexion. I had, there was always the stigma attached to the pretty boys, etc. So I did in the end.
Yeah.
And but I had, like I said, I think it's experience and it's knowledge, but pretty much at school, being a female, I felt more of the indifferences coming from girls, but it wouldn't be like, oh, look at her and then they call her name. It wouldn't. The indifferences are there just because you're just, maybe you've got hair, maybe you've got different clothes on, or maybe you're just different. Maybe they actually really do like you, don't know how to approach it. You find a lot of that. You find a lot of people admire the person that they can see, they do admire, but they will keep their distance in a sense. But it's only because they're inspired to be more of a, oh, I wish I had the gumption to speak out and speak up a little bit more. And that's what more or less I think that over my lifetime I've been more criticized. Oh, you're aggressive, you're this. I'm not aggressive. I'm just speaking my language that I learned from my father. And that's the thing, it's the language. My mum's side is like, hello dear, would you like a cup of tea? And my dad said, where do I start? You know, I mean, he would come out literally with those kind of languages. And so you get accustomed to that love language that they speak. And it will be offensive to some because you don't understand, but it's not offensive to those that actually understand the culture, the lingo and language. And so the amount of times I've been reprimanded, I use that word a lot, or talked about because I've used a certain lingo or language. Don't use that black talk on me.
Talk correctly. Don't talk like that.
Don't talk. You don't talk that black talk like that. You're not even black. Don't talk like that. You can't even speak properly. I'll admit I cannot speak patois, like, as well as some that language. It's like learning another language.
You're the most English black person I know. Well, I'm English. That's because I'm English. That's because I'm British. You know,
and I don't actually say that. Oh, you're so English. Mean. Look, man, where's my spice? I think, I mean, I personally try to bridge the gap and pull people into the situation of awareness, because that's my mum, you're disrespecting, and she was a white woman, or that's my dad, you're disrespecting, he was a black man. And so and what about me in the middle? You see, I think what I've learned from all of this discussion is that we are humanity. We all
breathe the same air, like you said earlier. We all bleed the same way. We come into this world the same way, and we're all going to leave the same way.
As Forrest Gump said, life's like a box of chocolates.
You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, let's leave it right there. Thanks, Lou. Oh, if you want to know any more of where to find us, you can find us on the Mind Over Matter Project Suicide Prevention YouTube channel. You can actually pop over to the Facebook group and be a part of the group and add your awareness to illnesses and disabilities and positive messages over on the Mom Project, Mental Health Awareness, Suicide Prevention, Real Talk, something like that. We'll go to Mind Over Matter Gives Back. You can find us that way. Lou, thank you. Oh, you're enjoying these lives, and you're enjoying these.
I'm them now, aren't I? I'm getting used to them. I'm showing up, and I'm
giving back, isn't it? I can't, wait till we start that fitness. That's coming. But right now, darling, I've got a bad back. So on that level, on that level, thank you viewers for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we'll get back to you.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
I've got another topic later. I'm interviewing Lloyd Fields. I'm interviewing Lloyd Fields. Just because we spoke about that name earlier. Lloyd Fields tonight on Three Principles again.
Well, I will be tuning in.
Yep, 6 o'clock. Take care. Thank you very much. Hold your best smile. Seriously, I have. No, you can let off. I don't know this man. I have to research. Huh?
Still recording.
We are. Are we still recording? These things happen. I've done my research.